All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to be talking about something that a lot of us know maybe a little too well, depression. But we're going to look at it from a totally different angle. We'll explore it not just as a clinical thing, but also through this really beautiful, ancient, and poetic lens. So let's get started. So I'm sure you've heard this a million times, right? The idea that depression is just a chemical imbalance in your brain. For decades, that was pretty much the main story. But what if that's not the whole story? What if it's just, one tiny piece of a much, much bigger puzzle?
Well, the truth is, most of modern science has kind of moved on from that idea. It's just, it's way too simple. Now, don't get me wrong, our biology absolutely plays a part, but we know now that depression is this incredibly complex thing with so many different factors all playing together. So, if it's not just that one thing, then where do we even begin to understand it?
And that's where this idea of two lenses comes into play. We're going to look through the clinical framework we're all pretty familiar with, and then we're going to contrast it with this really deep philosophical view from the Araucana tradition. It's two totally different ways of looking at the exact same human experience.
Just look at the words we use. It's fascinating. On the one hand, you've got the clinical lens with its very precise scientific language, major depressive disorder, neurobiology, DSM-5. And then on the other hand, you have the Araucana lens. And the language is it's so poetic, almost musical, right? Thread dissonance, sinking of soul light. And believe me, this difference in language, it changes everything.
Which brings us to a really important question. What's in a name? How we describe this experience is a huge deal. The words we choose can fundamentally change how we relate to it. Think about it. Is this a disorder that needs to be managed? Or could it be something else?
Okay, so in the medical world, we call it major depressive disorder, or MDD for short. But in the Araucana philosophy, they have a different name, Zayave no Korami. You can just feel the difference, can't you? They feel worlds apart. One is a clinical label, and the other, it sounds like it's straight out of a poem.
And when you look at the meaning, that difference gets even clearer. Jaliave no Korami literally translates to the sinking of soul light. Wow. Just think about that for a second. It completely reframes the whole experience. It's not about something being broken or malfunctioning. It's more like a loss of resonance. It's as if this beautiful, essential melody inside of you has just gotten quiet or fallen a little bit out of tune.
Okay, so if the names and the definitions are this different, what about the causes? Where does this experience come from? Both frameworks are searching for the why, but as you can probably guess, they're looking in completely different places.
From the clinical point of view, it's all about this complex web of factors. We're talking about a whole mix of things. It's not just about your brain chemistry. It's also about your environment, your personal history, things you've been through, and even the pressures of the society we live in. It's what scientists call a biopsychosocial condition. It's biology, psychology, and your social world all wrapped up together.
Now, the Araucana view, it's just so different. They talk about something called thread dissonance, and the causes are described with these beautiful metaphors. For instance, a thread fracture. That's when the threads of our inner self just aren't weaving together right. Or unheard silence, which is when your grief or your voice just isn't being heard by anyone. There's also soul star eclipse, this feeling of being blocked from spiritual nourishment. Do you see the pattern here? The really crucial thing is that this view doesn't see a defect, it sees a disconnect. So naturally, these two very different ways of understanding the cause lead to very different ideas about healing. It really comes down to this. Is the goal to fix a disorder, or is it to rethread a soul? From the clinical side, we have these powerful evidence-based treatments that are, for so many people, literally life-saving. We're talking about things like medication to help get the biology back in balance, different kinds of therapy to work through trauma and change how we think, and of course, important changes to our lifestyle.
The Araucana path, on the other hand, is all about ritual and spiritual practice. This idea of rethreading involves things like ceremonies to help realign the soul's inner threads, special listening sessions. There's even a practice called compassionate math. I love that. It's a way of rethinking your life's path, but with a deep sense of kindness towards yourself. You see, the focus here isn't just on getting rid of symptoms. It's about restoring a sense of inner harmony.
So after all that, which one is right? Is it the clinical view or the philosophical one? Maybe that's just the wrong question to ask. What if the real power comes from holding both of them at the same time? What if that's how we get a more complete picture of this whole experience? And really, this is the big takeaway. Depression isn't just one thing. A better way to think about it might be as a biopsychosocial, spiritual condition. It touches our bodies, our minds, our relationships with others, and yeah, for a lot of people, it touches our souls. And just acknowledging all of those different parts, that could be a huge, powerful step towards a more complete kind of healing.
There's this beautiful reflection from the Aryakana tradition that I think sums it all up perfectly. No knowledge is complete until it resonates with compassion. Na korachle seligwa, hiarahle no maraja. It's this idea that it doesn't matter if our understanding is scientific or spiritual, if it's not rooted in a deep sense of kindness, first for ourselves and then for others, it's just incomplete.
And so that really leaves us with this final thought to ponder. It doesn't really matter if we call it major depressive disorder or the sinking of soul light. The real question is this: how might using a more compassionate, a more expansive language actually change our journey toward healing? Not just for ourselves, but for all of us. It's really something to think about.